Hi everyone, Marco and Code here for a brand new episode of our special edition, Lore of the Universal Century. Today we're going back to the Zeta era in an attempt to answer a particular question, which is... Yep, in this video we are going to explore the history of the son or sons of the Gundam Mk-II, their mechanical lore, variants, and extract every bit of mechanical knowledge we have on them so far. But let's start from the beginning. What is exactly the Gundam Mk-III? Codenamed MSF-007, the Gundam Mk-III was a limited production high-performance mobile suit, deployed by both the Titans and the AEUG during the later stages of the Gryps War. A designer mobile suit manufactured by Anime Electronics based on the Gundam Mk-II stolen by the AEUG, then supplied to them, the Gundam Mk-III was from the get-go designed as an advanced version of its predecessor, mixing stolen proprietary Titan's tech with Anaheim's own savoir-faire. Indeed, the Mk-III was built from the get-go as a successor concept to the Mk-II, itself a machine that aimed to bring back mobile suits to their original concept of mobile infantry, with the Mk-III introducing a similar next-generation movable frame, ensuring even better responsiveness, maneuverability, and agility. Now, unlike the Mk-II, which was fully built around emulating the human body with more humanoid shapes, the Gundam Mk-III distanced itself from this too rigid approach, adopting numerous features and non-humanoid shapes in its design for the sake of balance and improvement. Most notably, the Mk-III introduced a significant mobility feature in the form of a next-generation backpack, made of 3 main thrusters and 4 independently movable vernier stabilizers, a technology directly inspired by the Yakushiki wing binders recently completed by Anaheim. Through this main propulsion system, the Mk-III retained the amazing forward thrust of the Mk-II while fixing its lack of maneuverability, while also improving its overall balance through the addition of 3 thrusters positioned on the underside of the rear skirt, next-generation thrusters on the legs, and auxiliary verniers in various locations. The placement of these thrusters and verniers alongside the Mk-III's entire bodily frame were carefully chosen to jointly work as to be structurally perfect options, thus enabling the overall design to work cohesively with each feature running at their maximal performance, without endangering the movable frame integrity. This resulted in the Mk-III's second but hidden greatest strength, its ability to reach high performance by retaining superior maneuverability with exceptionally heavy loads and combat equipment, resulting in a possible resurrection of the full armor concept for the Mk-III later on. Ice on the cake, the Gundam Mk-III was also outfitted with drastically redesigned joints compared to the Mk-II, thus enabling smoother organic-like movement for the mobile suit limbs, far closer to the human motion than anything its predecessor could have dreamt of. Now, the Mk-III wasn't just excellent because of its exceptional cohesive design and mobility, with the design achieving all of that, while massively simplifying the Mk-II and its take on these features, with the Mk-III movable frame being notably way simpler and easier to maintain than the one of its predecessor, infamously known for its overcomplexified design. Offensive and defensive-wise, the Mk-III was also leagues better than the Mk-II, while also being way more production-friendly. Instead of the titanium and ceramic composite armor of its predecessor, the Mk-III instead adopted a full frame made of Gundam gamma alloy, one of Anime Electronics' proprietary technologies, and one still not very widespread at the time of the Mk-III completion. Alongside this frame, the Mk-III also came equipped with a signature large shield, which came with 2 ports to mount its beam sabers on the external plating and activate them while still connected to the shield, thus enabling the Mk-III to use them as a sort of shield beam fork. Aside this shield, the Mk-III also introduced significant weaponries to supplement its mobility and decent defenses, adopting 2 generator-powered beam cannons fixed on its backpack and a custom beam rifle. This beam rifle came with the ability to be compatible with both the Mk-II rifle E-caps and the Anaheim snail types, but also carry them simultaneously, while also being able to empty them jointly through a beam drive system, thus firing shots with much higher output by drawing from both E-caps. Thanks to all these features, the Mk-III thus ended up being not far from being a perfect machine for its time, but as always, it still was far from that. Despite its simplicity, ultra-optimized design and increased productivity, the Gundam Mk-III remained an expensive piece of hardware, and while it kinda escaped its prototype status, it wasn't able to exceed low limited production numbers, thus making the dream of making it a mainstay machine an impossibility, although this was never really its goal. Secondly, the Mk-III, despite its superior mobility, decent firepower and great versatility, ended up filling a niche that brought it nowhere, with its mobility as a second-generation machine, making it still inferior to transformable third-generation designs, while its mid-level firepower would never enable it to contend with other ARM 4th-generation models that would start to appear a few months after its completion. Nonetheless, the Gundam Mk-III still proved to be a conceptual and design success, with its creation following the retro-engineering of the Mk-II, enabling Anaheim to digest the tech stolen from the Titans, while its design greatly inspired the Zeta plan that was concurrently completed, with the Zeta Gundam taking multiple design inspirations from the Mk-III and partially descending from it through the very obscure Gundam Mk-IV-B. Through its other successor, the regular Gundam Mk-IV from the Augusta Labs, the Mk-III also eventually led to the tech line that resulted in better adapted successors such as the Mk-V and Dovenwolf that reworked the Mk-III beam cannons into something more adequate for 4th generation standards. But that's enough setting for today, let's get to our lore. The year is January UC-87. At the time, the Anti-Zion Remnants task force known as the Titans was on its zenith, with its influence and privileges having long encroached all around the rest of the Federation forces and the Earth Federation as a whole. At the time, the Titans HQ of Gryps had finally completed its Mk-II development project, a special secret development plan kickstarted in UC-85 with the aim of creating an in-house second coming of the Gundam for the Titans to use, and paraded as a flag mobile suit for mop-up operations in space colonies, the infamous Gundam Mk-II. Although the Mk-II was on the exterior a flag mobile suit, its real purpose, however, was removed from that, which means that any second-hand source that tries to claim that the Mk-II was an attempt to resurrect a legend is either not reading actual sources or drinking copium and misinterpreting what was said at the Mk-II inauguration ceremony at Gryps. See, the Mk-II was actually an experimental trial to cram and refine as many features into a single Gundam package while only following Federation design tropes, a decision that was the explicit request of Admiral Jamitov Hyman, the Titan's supreme leader, so as to obtain a design unpolluted by space-noid engineering. What I'm trying to say is that while the Mk-II is the second coming of the original Gundam and was thought as such, it was less about resurrecting the White Devil for psychological reasons and more of an attempt to put forward a Titans-made Gundam, by the Titans, for the Titans, with only Federation featuring it to make it as much of a purebred design as possible. Hell, we even have sources that clearly state that it was Anaheim that was trying to resurrect and reinvent the Gundam concept with their G project that later spawned the Zeta project, and that it was the key difference between their attempt and the Titans Mk-II. But I digress. In all cases, this is exactly why the Gundam Mk-II appeared with many innovative features that made many salivate, including the movable frame for its chassis, which was a Titan's innovation, powerful forward thrusters, but also many inbuilt drawbacks, such as unnecessary structural complexity, a common issue in Federation designs, alongside outdated titanium armor, which was directly caused by research in armor materials having stagnated in Federation spheres after the One-Year War. Now, for the record, some sources have reported that while the Mk-II armor in titanium was largely outdated, the Titans were still restarting development in armor material, with the Mk-II armor being made of titanium, yes, but with new heterogeneous structures for its plating, greatly improving its ballistic resistance for the material it was made of. This was also partially the job of Camille's mother Hilda Bidam, alongside her contribution to the Dogose Gear development project, also carried out at Gryps. In all cases, despite this, the Mk-II, as purebred as it was, remained a largely flawed design, an issue that was actually entirely acknowledged by its designer, Camille's father Franklin Bidam, with the man already drawing plans for a future successor model to his Gundam. Whatever Franklin's plans were for hypothetical Gundam Mk-III, however, vanished by March UC-87, with a unit from the Anti-Earth Union Group, a Federation splinter cell opposing the Titans, launching a raid on Gryps while the 3 Mk-IIs were undergoing tests in the civilian sector. This resulted in the start of Mobile Suit Zeta Gundam and the infamously known Gundam Jack, a chain of events that resulted in the AEUG capturing first 2, then 3 of the completed Mk-IIs, and Franklin being killed in a failed attempt to steal back a mobile suit from the AEUG. This was a catastrophic strike for the Titans and their Mk-II project, with all their Gundam Mk-IIs being stolen and their lead engineer being killed. Despite this setback, development of the Mk-II project continued as the spring of UC-87 arrived, being carried over by other engineers at the Gryps base, with Franklin's early plans for the follow-up being examined by them in an attempt to carry over his work. Around that time, the Titans had recently become aware of Anaheim's TMS development plan, a development plan aiming at creating transformable technology, a plan which had eventually converged into the infamous Zeta plan once Anaheim retro-engineered the Mk-II movable frame. With the incoming risk of the AEUG fielding high-speed transformable interceptors, fear concretized in August of the same year, with Anaheim delivering the Zeta Gundam to the AEUG, the Titans thus shifted gears, turning Franklin's Mk-III into an effort to put forward their own transformable design to act as a counter to any TMS the AEUG could field. To achieve this, the Gryps staff then turned their sights toward the ORX-005 GA plant, a transformable mobile armor equipped with a variable frame, reworking its transformation mechanism and bastardizing it with Franklin's leftover plans for a Mk-III. This resulted around May UC-87 in the creation of the RX-272 Gundam Mk-III, Gryps' 12th produced model, a transformable high-speed interceptor designed for multi-purpose roles, greatly differing from Franklin's original vision. This Gundam Mk-III was a machine primarily designed around a novel core concept, being built around the use of optional equipments, enabling it to perform different functions. To explain it in detail, this is loosely similar to the F-90 and its mission packs, or the ISO line, the Mk-III being designed to select its onboard equipment before launching from its mothership, each enabling different functions depending on the loadout, and swapping them upon returning to base. Most notably, this Mk-III is known to be able to operate with Optus massive rear wing binders in a first naked configuration, or adopt 2 different sets of wing binders to be able to transform into slightly different mobile armor modes, the second of which is known to transform it into a Wave Rider mode instead of an Interceptor mobile armor mode to enable atmospheric re-entry. Each of these configurations have their nicknames: Freia, Halpuley, and Dureye, with Dureye being confirmed as the Wave Rider Transformable 1, the Halpuley as the Mobile Armor Interceptor, and Freia strongly hinted as being the Nicked one. Production-wise, 3 units were manufactured or at least conceptualized, with Unit 1 being in the Freia configuration, Unit 2 being the Halpuley, and Unit 3 using the Dureye parts, which seems to indicate that if this Mk-III was indeed produced, only one set of parts was created and shared amongst the 3 units. Weaponry-wise, this Mk-III came equipped with a couple of beam cannons as a standard inbuilt weapon, alongside a pair of 60mm Vulcans, which are said to be optional and thus likely part of its additional equipment. Now, more interestingly, the Gundam Wiki lists the Mk-III material as being Gundarium Beta, which is actually wrong and removes a whole lot to the Mk-III lore. See, multiple sources mention that this Mk-III was made with titanium armor and ceramic composite, but a variation of it that was equivalent to Gundarium Beta, and that issues in its refinement was that eventually killed the project in the cradle. The Mk-III using titanium over Gundarium, albeit a variation of it that was nearly as durable as older Gundarium variants, actually directly connects to the Mk-II using its heterogeneous titanium variant, which seems to point that for a time, the Titans doubled down in their attempt to make titanium as effective as Gundarium, failed, and fully turned toward Gundarium only after Anaheim Electronics provided them with samples of Gundarium Gamma. In all cases, this armor issue was eventually the killing blow for this Mk-III, as it didn't meet planned performance, likely because its titanium armor was too heavy for its frame, resulting in the Mk-III being cancelled and its development line being closed. Now, this attempt from Gryps to continue the Mk-II with a Mk-III was however not the end of the story for the idea of a Gundam Mk-III, but rather only the start, with multiple different facilities taking over the burden of continuing the Mk-II legacy. Far away from Gryps, in the Kilimanjaro lab, an Earth Federation R&D facility later absorbed by the Titans, engineers soon became very enthusiastic about the Mk-II design, despite the Titans officially spurning it, with its movable frame being considered highly valuable for further research. Due to this interest, blueprints of the Mk-II were shared from Gryps to Kilimanjaro, with the local engineers soon getting to work to produce their own take for a Mk-II successor, a completely different and separate Gundam Mk-III. This eventually resulted around the autumn UC-87 in the creation of the RX-166 Gundam Mk-III, codenamed Eagley, Kilimanjaro take at what an advanced version of the Mk-II should be. Compared to Gryps' earlier attempt, the Eagley was a massive departure in terms of core concept, ditching the idea of using the Mk-II movable frame as a basis for a transferable chassis, to instead double down on the Mk-II core quality as a non-transferable design with excellent thrust. To achieve this, the Mk-II movable frame was reworked through the introduction of Gundam Gamma over titanium, drastically decreasing the weight of the Eagley compared to both Gryps' version of the Mk-III, but also its predecessor the Mk-II, while of course increasing its frame sturdiness and resistance. Now, the Eagley main feature was it introducing a large high-mobility thruster unit specifically designed for space combat, with Kilimanjaro reworking the Eagley around the design philosophy of enhancing its load capacity at all costs, thus making it a tactical attack mobile suit, prioritizing road thrust and output over versatility. Production-wise, it is known that at least one Eagley was produced and completed at the Kilimanjaro base, although the number 3 on this unit seems to suggest that a batch of 3 units was made, as befitting most prototype runs. Unfortunately enough, the Eagley production was put to an end by the winter of UC-87, with their development site, the Kilimanjaro base, being attacked by Karaba as depicted in episode 35 of Zeta Gundam, an attack which resulted in parts of the base collapsing and all the Eagleys being destroyed, thus severing the second tech line of the Gundam Mk-III. Now, for the fun fact, that attack happened around November UC-87, but sources state that the Eagley was lost in January UC-88, which you can accept as either just a date contradiction, which are rampant in UC, or that Karaba came back to finish off the base later on. But let's rewind our timeline a bit, far away from Titan's controlled spheres, in late UC-85, very close to early UC-86. At the time, ANA Electronics had been experimenting with various mobile technologies on their own, such as early versions of Gundam Gamma, leaked from Axis through Char, or even Gundam designs, despite the debacle of the Gundam development project in UC-84. Part of these early experiments were notably their own attempt at resurrecting the Gundam, their G project, which, as we said, would gradually evolve through the Gamma Gundam or Rugdias into the later Zeta projects. While Anaheim engaged its G project, multiple of its departments started toying with different ideas, producing various parts and design concepts in their trial and error search. A good chunk of these disparate parts were eventually cobbled together in a Phantom testbed suit, later codenamed AR-001 Gundam 3D or Audrey, a machine that ANA Electronics immediately scrubbed from records and provided to Agent Kill, a private militia that served the corporation's interests. The move here was to take advantage of the Audrey's secrecy and cobbled together design, enabling Agent Kill to keep it functional after missions by just individually rerouting damaged parts to the original department that had provided them in the first place, thus keeping its existence secret and cutting any possible lead to the corporation as a whole. In addition to that, production of spare parts for the Gundam 3D would be impossible to track down due to the decentralized effort, as all its parts were produced, repaired and obtained from different departments across Anaheim. Aside this, the Audrey was also specially adapted to carry on secret missions for Anaheim, and got fitted with a super pricey system called the Minovsky coating that would essentially spread Minovsky particles all over the Audrey armor plating, thus massively increasing its stealth and making it near invisible to enemy sensors as long as the Audrey remains still. This was, however, not a perfected system, as the particle adhesion rate was badly handled by computers and had to be manually kept in check by the pilot, thus making the Audrey overly reliant on its pilot to handle its most unique feature. Now you are probably realizing the Audrey is suspiciously similar to both the later Anime Electronics Gundam Mk-III and the RX-272 Gundam Mk-III we previously presented. Also, if you were expecting a nice and cozy explanation, you're in for a disappointment. The Audrey is a catastrophe of an outlaw design, as whoever designed it basically decided to insert a Gundam Mk-III wannabe in UC-85, aka between 1 and 2 years before the Mk-II was completed and made public. Worse, the Halpuley similarities are because I'm pretty certain the author saw the RX-272, thought, oh, it's cool, it's from Model Graphics, it's not official, right, so I can poach it, without doing research and knowing that both anime logs and the Gundam Mk-II Mobile Suit Bible, aka very recent sources, both mentioned the Eagley and the Halpuley, so the Audrey is LARP at its finest. From an in-lore perspective, it's highly probable that the parts from the Audrey that are similar to the Mk-III are simply parts produced by the third department of Anime that would later design the Mk-III, and the parts similar to the RX-272 in its Dureye configuration are because of anime engineers that would later help the Titans for their Mk-III or fully transfer to Gryps by then. If you want to sleep soundly at night, the Audrey is a sort of proto-Mk-III without a movable frame and closer to the GP Gundams than the rest of the Mk series, but yeah, its outlaw conception for gravure is catastrophic to say the least. Deployment history-wise, the Audrey would partake in many filler adventures as Argent Kill flag unit, including meeting Quattrobagina and his Yakushiki during the Gryps War and surviving up until UC-96. Also, by that point, its role as a flag unit had long been usurped by the Delta Zayin. But let's take a leap to actually better constructed lore in March UC-87, right after the Gundam Jack of the Mk-IIs. After the AEUG returned to the moon from the raid of Gryps, the 3 stolen Gundam Mk-IIs were provided to Anime Electronics, and although the AEUG kept one to use as a flag unit, the other 2 were methodically disassembled, studied and pulled apart, being cannibalized for spare parts to keep the fielded Mk-II active in the long run. Now, more importantly, Anime also conducted extensive retro-engineering on the Mk-II, squeezing it so as to obtain the Titan's proprietary movable frame technology that Anime was still lagging behind on. Now, while many inside Anime didn't regard the Mk-II as anything more than a convenient recipient to obtain the movable frame secret, a certain department inside Anime, its development bureau, took a keen interest in the captured Mk-II unit, with the department supervisor, Chief Engineers Professor Fujita, being extremely impressed by the stolen Gundam. Professor Fujita notably quickly identified that the Mk-II suffered from structural overcomplexity, an issue prevalent in many Federation prototypes, but also largely praised the suit as a whole, be it because of its unique movable frame, but also its return to the concept of mobile infantry as an extension of the human body. As a result, the 3rd department started tampering with what had been learned from the Gundam Mk-II, bastardizing its movable frame with Anime's own build block structures and Gundarium Gamma alloy, with Fujita aiming to create, that way, a perfect successor to the Mk-II, a better, more advanced but not overcomplicated successor to the Mk line they had stolen from the Titans. This development project that took place during the early summer UC-87 was carried out separately but concurrently to the rest of Anime's Zeta project, with the incoming Advanced Gundam of the 3rd Department sharing many components and design parts with the other Anime Gundams. Most notably, the incoming Mk-III and Zeta Gundam were developed rather close to each other, with multiple sources highlighting similar design shapes, parts and tropes, despite both being part of different projects. In all cases, this resulted in the creation at the end of the summer UC-87 of the MSF-007 Gundam Mk-III, a proper successor to the Mk-II made by Anime, with a model number clearly crediting Fujita's involvement in the creation. How many Gundam Mk-IIIs were produced by Anime is not exactly known, although it is commonly assumed that around 8 units were made due to a Unit 8 existing. Of these hypothetical 8 Mk-IIIs made for the AEUG, it is known that Anam Electronics sold at least 2 of them to the Titans, which are going to colloquially call Unit 1 and 2, while providing 3 other units to the AEUG, Unit 3, 4 and 8. Unit 1 and 2 apparently underwent space testing as implied by the one-shot Iron Heart, with one either being destroyed in its hangar or blowing up during tests. Unit 2 will instead be used to fight off a wave of space DJs, one apparently piloted by Dureye, a duel which the Mk-III and its pilot survived, or rather were spared, and down the line led to the same Titan's pilot later defecting to the AEUG several months afterwards. As for the third unit, this one would fall in the hands of the twisted AEUG representative Sir Vukodlak, serving as his final trump card for the shady events of Gundam Werewolf around October UC-87. Unit 3 would be quietly smuggled inside the Titan's Pegasus-class Hecat in a supply crate, believed to be spare parts for the unit the Hecat crew were testing, a variation of the Mk-III's own successor, the Gundam Mk-IV Werewolf. Much like the Mk-IV Werewolf, the Mk-III Unit 3 was also equipped with Vukodlak Magnum Opus, the Warfare Excursioning Anima Resonator, aka WER system, a weaponized version of Anaheim's biosensor designed to slowly enhance the system with the souls of the dead, similarly to what Camille pulled at the end of Zeta with a regular biosensor. Vukodlak had puppeteered the entire events of Gundam Werewolf by setting up multiple murders across the Hecat so as to slowly build up the wear of both the Mk-IV Werewolf and the Mk-III Unit 3. This eventually resulted in a heated wear duel between the Mk-III and its own progeny, a duel the Mk-IV eventually won, all the while Vukodlak bled out on the ground while claiming someone else would finish his work. Aside these 3 known units, it is known that another unit, Unit 4, was created and managed to survive the Gryps War, but more on that one in the full armor section. More interestingly, it is also known that Anaheim created a slight variation of the Mk-III, the Mk-III Unit 8, differing from its sibling units through a different red paint scheme, paint which was actually an advanced version of anti-beam coating seen in the Delta series, and of the same enhanced type as the one used in the Delta II. The Mk-III Unit 8 was actually supposed to be delivered to the AEUG Collier fleet, which would have related to the Agama, with the intended goal of this Mk-III being to replace the Yakushiki as Quattrobagina's new mobile suit. Unfortunately, the courier vessel sent by Anaheim was intercepted by Neozion forces around November UC-87, and although the Mk-III Unit 8 sought it and dealt tremendous losses to Axis forces, it ended up too damaged to be delivered to the Collier fleet, resulting in the suit being returned to its mother factory in Grenada. But let's go back to our good old Unit 4 and an aspect of the Mk-III we haven't explored yet. Like we said in the intro, the Mk-III was designed to be a superbly maneuverable and agile mobile suit, largely self-sufficient in terms of operationality and firepower, and more or less a better, less complicated version of its predecessor, the Mk-II. More interestingly, the Gundam Mk-III was also one of Anam Electronics' products alongside the Mk-II itself and the Yakushiki Kai that were chosen to receive enhancement models known as full armor, an attempt from Anaheim to resurrect the FSWS plan from the One-Year War, which enhanced mobile suits with massive firepower. With the Gryps era heralding the age of maneuverability and widespread use of beam weaponry, Anaheim's full armor plan was designed with a core emphasis of not only massively increasing the firepower of the recipient suits, but also increasing their range and operational capability without destroying all the maneuverability. In the case of the Gundam Mk-III, this FSWS treatment came in the form of massive red and white Gundarium armor parts coupled with wingbinder shields on each shoulder, not only increasing the defensive abilities of the suit, but also preserving its maneuverability. Firepower-wise, these parts also introduced a boosted generator, bringing the Mk-III total output to 3040 kilowatts, giving it ample energy to power not just its regular beam weapons, but a total of 6 inbuilt ones, including 2 hyperbeam cannons doubling as hyperbeam sabers on its legs, 2 shoulder-mounted beam cannons in its wingbinder shields, and 2 additional grenade launchers. These additional parts also boosted the Mk-III in terms of mobility, a first for a full armor design, with multiple new verniers and thrusters balancing the Mk-III increased weight of 14 tons, with a boost of 33.7 tons of thrust, thus making it reach a raw acceleration of 2.27 Gs. This essentially made the full armor Gundam Mk-III a more heavily armored version of the regular Mk-III with no drawbacks in terms of maneuverability, while also dramatically increasing its cruising range and speed, thus making it one of the rare successes of the FSWS concept overall. While the full armor Mk-II was rejected as a failure, the full armor Mk-III was not, with the parts being approved, produced and outfitted on Unit 4, surviving up until UC-96 in the events of Last Sun. Although it is totally possible that other Mk-IIIs were made or survived for long, much like the Mk-III Unit 4, it is unknown how many exactly were made, although it is likely future side stories will add new Mk-IIIs over time, hopefully better than Gravure and its Audrey. Although Anam Electronics would almost immediately continue their Mk line with the ultra-obscure Gundam Mk-IV-B, one of the progenitors of the Zeta Gundam, the Mk line would primarily continue, but on the Titan side, with Professor Fujita later assisting the Augusta Labs in producing the infamous Gundam Mk-IV, with his Mk-III data taken into account. Now you are perhaps wondering what kind of legacy did the Mk-III leave overall, with its progenitor, the Gundam Mk-II, leaving a massive lineage through the refined Barzam and Gym-III lines. Well, unfortunately enough, the Mk-III never really left a significant legacy, although two lore entries show us that mass-produced Mk-IIIs could become a thing. Around UC-89, after the conclusion of the First Neozion War, the Earth Federation forces would apparently launch a run of mass-produced Mk-IIIs, the Mk-III Goofer, a large-scale production machine designed primarily for ground combat. The Goofer, while based on the Mk-III, was apparently equipped with a semi-monocoque armor, meaning it lacked a movable frame and was thus still a first-generation suit, thus making it, at the end of the day, more or less a glorified Gym-II with wing binders for better maneuverability. Despite this, the Goofer was quite decent in terms of productivity, and the Earth Federation ground forces were apparently looking to standardize their ground mobile suits to the Goofer, a decision that unfortunately never came to pass in the end, either because of the budget cuts of the UC-90s, the Jagan's eventual rise, or the Goofer's inadequacies. Nonetheless, these Mk-III links were still deployed to suppress a Titan's remnant insurrection around mid-UC-89, contributing to avoiding a pocket of Titan's resistance from lingering for too long. The other mass-production version of the Mk-III instead comes from Kaisuja Kondo's alternative Zeta retelling, the RX-178R Advanced Gundam Mk-II or Gundam Mk-III. In that alternative UC story, this Mk-III is produced by the Titans as their new mainstay mobile suit, a wink to Kazumi Fujita's early wishes outlaw to see his Mk-III design being used by the Titans instead of the AEUG, a wish Tomino denied due to the Psycho Gundam and Gundam Mk-II being enough Titans Gundam for the story. And with this video comes to an end. If you are interested in the continuation of the Mk line with Mk-IV and Mk-V, we already have a video for you. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, join our Discord server, and perhaps become a member if you wish so. Marcon Cult out.
But who will survive?